Hi everyone, it's Danielle Marie from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, talking about April 2026 and where we ended up for the Austin real estate market. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to start with a graphic that I just don't really like, and I'm going to show you because you've probably seen it on a bunch of real estate agents when they post graphics. A lot of times in Austin, they use this standardized graphic. So if you've seen this graphic before or a version of this graphic, the reason I don't like this graphic and what you'll see other agents in Austin post is because right here, so you're going to see that the statistics for this is for single family homes, condos, and townhouses compared. Now, that is not comparing apples to apples. So when you see this graph and you see that the median sales price is $573,000, and the number of closed sales and the months of inventory, that's also including our townhouse and condo market. And I, for one, can tell you, our townhouse and condo market here are really struggling. So when you have that data added in to the overall data here in Austin, it kind of skews it a little bit. It does not tell a full picture. So we're going to discard this. I'm going to talk today about, we're going to talk about just single family homes in the city of Austin. I like to talk niche. I like to talk about specific areas. I'm going to talk broad in regards to the city of Austin. But if you are looking in Austin, make sure whatever real estate agent you are working with does a micro analysis of that particular area. So it depends on if you're in Hyde Park, if you're in Tarrytown, if you're in Circle C, if you're out in Bee Cave, if you're in Round Rock, you need to be looking at your niche area and not just this overall data. You need to understand where you are. So we're going to drill in today. We're going to talk about where April 2026 ended up for the city of Austin. We're going to talk month over month. We're going to talk year over year, month over month. We're going to talk about where we are year to date in comparison to where we ended in January 2025. And then if you hang on to, we are going to hit a little bit about what are the new listings, how many we're seeing coming on board, what does our pending look like, to really give a forecast of, is this market stronger than what we've seen the past few years? Are we going up? Are we going down? And kind of all about that. And at any point in time, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comment section. If you like it, the information, let me know. Also, feel free to subscribe if you're on YouTube, or follow and save if you're on X or LinkedIn. So with that, we are going to hop into, I do weekly data about Austin every week and kind of really like to dive down into it. For this in particular, we are going to talk about where we are for April. So first and foremost, you're going to see this first top. We're going to see April, we so far have closed 856 units. Now, they may go slightly up, and I know we're at the end of May, and you're saying, why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this at the end of May? The reason I'm telling you this at the end of May is sometimes real estate agents and I'd say builders that put in their data as far as closing out sales, they kind of suck. Sometimes they don't put it in for 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'll even see things go up for this month. We'll see it go up in like 4 weeks, 5 weeks after we've closed out. So you'll see that. So what we're also going to see right here is you can see the average sales price is $806,000. Our median was $602,000. If you remember that last graphic I showed, the one I didn't like, it was saying the median is $573,000. Now, not a huge difference, but it is a difference. That being said, year over year, we're down. We're down it's 3.6% on both average and median for April. Now, that is as far as like the total sales price. If you look at the number of units closed, we are up. So two like contradictory things in the sense of we're up almost 16% in our number of sales, but our prices are dropped. That could also be the market is softer. We're seeing people bring down their values of their houses, or their, not values, but their asking prices, or they're negotiating more. And that's what we're kind of seeing, the lower price point. We've also seen a return of investors. So I've seen investors that maybe we didn't see for the past 2 years because the market's kind of been a little slow. We're seeing them hop back in. Also has to do with interest rates. When interest rates soften, we tend to see more of that activity. That being said, nothing big difference as far as square footage. I like to look at square footage because if all of a sudden we're seeing astronomically higher or lower, that also might be an indicator of price. Days on market, very, very similar. We're selling slightly faster this year, slightly longer this year than we were last year. The other part that we like to look at is, I like to look at where is your close price to list price, and that is what you're currently listed at, what was that percentage that the seller negotiated? And then close price to original list price. And original list price is before there were any deductions at all, any price reductions. Where were we if we looked at where we originally started? So you can see very, very on point from year over year compared to this past year. We are kind of right on there. That being said, what you're going to see is we're about, I say 2 to 2.5% is what we're closing below list price. And then if we look at where the price originally started, the original list price, we're looking at 3 to 4.5%. So not a huge swing, but there is a swing. Now, that is year over year. So year over year, we're selling more homes, but we're about a 3.6% reduction in price. Very similar as far as the asking and closing price, what we're seeing as far as what sellers are giving. Now, if we go back month over month, you can see there's a lot more green. It's telling a bigger story. What we're seeing month over month, we did see an increase in regards to what sellers are getting for their house in regards to close price to their original list price and close price to their list price, meaning sellers are getting closer to what they're asking for in April compared to what they were in March. And that is completely normal. You're going to also see that we closed out slightly higher for our median sale at this year at 602 compared to where we were last month in March. The big drop, we did see a big drop in our average. And I will have to say, take average with a grain of salt because Austin also has very much a luxury market. So depending on where the luxury market was and how many houses actually closed on the market, that might have brought up our average significantly during that March month, because leading up to March, we weren't really seeing much activity in the luxury market. And now we've started to see more. So what we're also starting to see is maybe we're not seeing as many luxury homes hit the public market. There are private markets. I would be naive to say that houses do not go on the public market for all houses. There's some reasons for that, is people don't want to disclose what they're listing their house for, what they're buying it for tax purposes. You're also going to see it, people going through divorces or non-disclosures. So it's individuals that do not want you to know that they live in a certain home. So we'll see some off-market houses happen like that. Now, that being said, where we are, if we compare ourselves to where we are in comparison to December. And overall December, we are closing out significantly closer to where our list price is. We're up 1% on our closed price to list price, and we are up like 4 to 5% on our closed price to original list price. Now, I knew I kind of went through that fairly quickly. I'm going to pull this down for a second, and we're going to talk on some really cool data that I absolutely loved when it comes to understanding the market. So overall, if we wanted to say, how do we grade April? Well, April, year over year, we're selling substantially more. We're selling 6% or 16% more. I actually forgot to mention this. So this is also historically, how are we selling? Historically, so if we go all the way back to 2025, that's when I started, or not 2025, 2005, when I started tracking this data. I started pulling data when I could pull it from then. We're still about 14% under where our normal sales for April. So still about 143 units short. And this is all the way back to 2005 to today, to the end of April. Where are we? So still significantly less than we've seen. However, way better than last year. And we'll see that again in a second. What we are going to jump into next is I want to understand, when we're looking at houses hitting the market, what has been happening the past few weeks? What are we seeing for listings coming to the market? What are we seeing for pending homes coming to the market? What are we seeing for price reductions? All of this ties into the bigger picture for the Austin real estate market. So I'm going to add this one to the stage, and we are going to talk a little bit about the residential market. So this is all the single family homes in Austin. It's going to be slightly different. It pulls data from similar places to overall to look at. So we're going to see, first off, where is our market pricing? So you're going to see right here, we're going to see our market pricing is in this deep dark black, and you're going to see year over year, we're seeing in between, I say close to 2025 and 20, actually closer to 24 than we were 25. It was a little higher. you can see we kind of had a huge drop down here in April. Now, why is that? And I want to put this in perspective before we go into anything further. Interest rates matter. So if we look at our interest rates and we look at where we were January of this year all the way into April, you can see, hey, January we were down, we saw activity, people were starting to buy, and all of a sudden we saw interest rates start to spike up in March. And when we talk about weeks that had a lot of activity and where we reach our peak as far as the number of pendings, you're going to see it's right around this, it's like the 13th, 14th of April, all the way until the 27th of April. This whole area, when we went down, that's when we saw activity. And then all of a sudden you see a spike in interest rates and you're going to see a pullback. Not an extreme pullback, still better than where we were in previous years, but we're going to see a pullback. So if we look at, if we go, and I want to do is, we're going to look at inventory, but I like to look at weekly to kind of see where we are. So if we are looking at our weekly inventory, these are our new listings. And you can kind of see, hey, where's our new listings per week? And if you look at our peak right here, that week 15, that was the beginning of April. That's kind of where we see with our peak listings. We're seeing a drop down. Now, this is normal. We normally see a lot of houses come on up until April, and then we kind of see them start to fall off all the way through the end of the year. So cyclical, we are kind of just right on it. But what's interesting is we actually saw fewer houses come to the market in the past few years. So you can see, if we look at our week where we are, we had 258 houses compared to prior years of 321 and 312. So our inventory is down, is a little bit more suppressed. Part of this can also be that sellers realized they could not get what they wanted for their homes, so they weren't bringing their homes to the market. If you look at our under contracts, our pending, this is where the data kind of stands out that, hey, we did really have a stronger spring than the past 2 years. Nowhere near where we were historically. So if we go back to like 2019, 18, all that, we're going to see a lot more activity. Not tremendous, but we are going to see more activity. But you can see starting in April, beginning of this is mid-April. So this is when the interest rates were at the lowest in the kind of the springtime after the increase in March. You're going to see that we surpassed it the past, I say, 6 weeks, that we saw significantly more activity here in Austin. Now, the question is, are we going to kind of see that trend as we continue to fall? Are we going to see that trend? Typically, historically, when it comes to holiday weekends, we don't see huge bumps, but we could. And then days until contract. So when houses hit the market, how long till they go under contract? And you're going to see that we're lower. 15 and 16 is the median for these past 2 weeks. Now, that is good in the sense that what we're also seeing is we're seeing a lot of buyers out there, but the right inventory for the buyers and what they're looking for is not necessarily hitting the market. So there's buyers out there, they're looking. I have specific buyers. If you're in Circle C, if you are a seller in Circle C, let's talk. Circle C for single family homes, depending on your size and your pool, if you don't have a pool, our Circle C, we're talking like 1.3 months of supply. Meaning if you are a good home and you are priced correctly in Circle C, you're probably going to be moving. You're going to move that listing quicker than other areas. That has to go with the desirability of that area. There's also areas like Hyde Park. We see a lot more activity and they're moving significantly faster. That also goes into what is the average price point for those areas. Those areas that are below that 1.4 million, I think luxury threshold that we're kind of looking at. If you have a house that's priced between 6 and 9 and you're within the conforming loan limits, you're going to see those houses move a little quicker because there's no jumbo loan involved. So there's a bunch of different things at play that go into it, but I will say those two areas, I've watched them. I've watched multiple offers. I've watched them move significantly faster in those areas. Now, what I also want to hop into is we're going to look at price drops. I always think that price drops are really interesting to really understand what we're seeing. And so active right now, we're seeing in all of Austin, 51% of the listings in Austin have had a price drop, an average price drop of 8%. Now, that's not 8% on the first time. That's overall of all their price drops. It's equaling 8%. What you're going to see right here is if we go price drops by range as far as like what they're listed for, you're going to see the highest number, the quantity, not relative to the total number, you're going to see that at 271 is that 1.4 million and above. And then you're going to hit down between that 4 and 500,000 sweet spot right there. We're seeing another one. Now, the average price drop, what you're seeing, the biggest one, obviously, we're seeing it between the $0 and $200,000, and you're seeing that 14%. But that's also because you drop it $5,000, it's significantly larger of a percentage than if you're dropping it 10 grand at 800,000. Different things are happening in there. So when you are listing your house, I like to say you want to make sure you're listing it almost like you're surfing. You want to make sure that when you're listing the price of your house, you should be wanting to meet the top of the wave, that crest. You want to ride that wave in. You don't want to be sitting behind pricing your home high to where you're paddling as hard as you can. But as the wave is crashing, meaning as prices are coming down because we're hitting that fall market, you don't want to be following it. Like that doesn't do you any good, because all the price drops you're going to have to get to, you're going to have make a significant one to be able to catch that wave. If not, you're going to end up stranded and underwater. So with that, looking at the last month, so if we look back in April, we want to look at the number of listings that went under contract after a price drop. It was typically 13 days after the price drop that we saw it. And you can kind of see the days from the price drop to when they went under market, and you're going to see that went down significantly. So if we looked in January, you have dropped a price, you didn't really see as much action. This past month, you dropped a price, you saw some action. The other thing that I like to look at is, hey, price drops over time, the average percent of the price drops and the number of price drops. You're going to see this here in April. We jutted up. We went up significantly in April as far as the number of houses having a price drop. And that kind of corresponds to what we've seen in prior months. So I have buyers that are looking, and I know for them, they've got a very strict kind of price area. And I said, if your house criteria is a little bit more lax and you have the time to wait, maybe we see if we find the perfect house, we make the offer on that perfect house. Let's say the perfect house is maybe a little bit above. Waiting a few months, especially when we historically see price drops, you can kind of see right here start to happen. When we start seeing an increase in price drops, the house that you want may have a price drop. Or what I say is, instead of waiting for that price drop, maybe you make that lower offer. I say that disrespectful offer, because we're saying, hey, we love the house. However, the price for it to make sense for us is this price. It's not that we don't love your house, we don't respect your price. This is where it makes sense for us. So if it makes sense for you, let's talk, let's negotiate. If not, we understand. So just a little bit of data about here in the Austin real estate market. I know I flew through that, but if you really want to talk about maybe your niche buy box area, or you're selling your house and you kind of want to understand the market behind that, feel free to reach out. You can find me there's Danielle at theonerealty.com. You can email me. You can find me on X at Austin Realtor. You can go to my website, www.theonerealty.com. Feel free to subscribe and save this so you can find it in the future. But I hope you have an amazing day. And the sun is out. Again, we had a great Memorial Day weekend, and excited to see what is ahead. So with that, have a great day.